Welcome, everyone, to this explainer. Today, we are unpacking something absolutely massive. You know, we so often think of constitutions as these dusty, incredibly dense legal textbooks just sitting on a shelf somewhere gathering cobwebs. But I want you to completely shift your perspective today. Don't think of the Indian Constitution as just some boring rule book. Think of it as a living, breathing architectural blueprint for over 1 billion people. It's a document built on profound philosophical ideals, literally designed to shape the destiny of an entire nation. To really wrap our heads around this, we have to look right at the front, the Constitution's Preamble. The esteemed scholar Granville Austin hit the nail on the head when he said, the Preamble is an identity card of the Constitution. Think about what an identity card does for you. At a single glance, it tells you exactly who someone is, right? It gives you their core identity. Well, the Preamble does exactly that for India. It takes this massive, complex philosophical foundation and shrinks it down into one single, incredibly powerful statement. Okay, let's dive into this roadmap we've got for today's explainer. We'll start with the nation's historic blueprint, then we'll be unpacking the identity card, move on to the nature of the state, explore the 4 pillars of promise, and wrap up with a grand and noble vision. Section 1, the nation's historic blueprint. So, to really understand this document, we have to travel back in time to a period of absolute revolution. This blueprint didn't just appear out of thin air one day. It actually grew from a very specific seed. Back on December 13th, 1946, Jawaharlal Nehru moved what was called the Historical Objectives Resolution. This was essentially a firm pledge, a real dedication to forming an independent sovereign republic. The Constituent Assembly then adopted this blueprint on January 22nd, 1947, and it was these guiding principles, these core philosophical ideals from the resolution that influenced the shaping of the fundamental law of the land through all its stages, right up until the Constitution finally came into force on January 26, 1950. Section 2, Unpacking the Identity Card. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that once the framework was set, those glorious ideals from the resolution reappeared right at the very beginning of the document. Look at that very first phrase in the preamble. See those capitalized words? We the people. I mean, every single word in this document was judiciously chosen, but these opening words, they carry immense philosophical weight. They are the absolute anchor for the entire text that follows. By declaring, we the people of India do hereby adopt, enact, and give to ourselves this Constitution, the founders did something truly revolutionary. They were making it crystal clear that ultimate sovereign power is inherent in the citizens. Just think about that. This very phrase effectively and instantly wiped out the authority of the British monarch. Boom! Gone! Furthermore, it meant any lingering claim of power by the Indian princes absolutely no longer possible. The Constitution is founded entirely on the public consent of the people. They literally gave it to themselves. Section 3, the nature of the state. So the preamble uses 5 very specific terms to define exactly what kind of political entity India is. The first one is sovereign. Simply put, this means India is not under any foreign rule or control. It answers to no outside authority whatsoever. But it has internal implications too. It means the state is legally superior to all individuals and associations within its borders. This gives it the ultimate authority to maintain internal peace and security, and, if absolutely necessary, to resort to war to preserve the unity and integrity of the nation. Next up is socialist. Now, fun fact, this term was actually added to the preamble a bit later by the 42nd Amendment in 1976. However, our source notes that this ideal was always implicit in the Constitution anyway, particularly in the directive principles of state policy, which basically command the state to take welfare measures. In the Indian context, it's really about democratic socialism. It's the goal of ending poverty, ignorance, and disease, but doing so through democratic processes. The third term, secular, was also explicitly added in 1976. But just like socialism, its spirit runs through the entire original fabric of the Constitution. It simply means the state is not founded on any one particular religion. Instead, it respects all religions equally, without any discrimination. It's a fundamental commitment to protecting minorities and guaranteeing equal rights to everyone, which perfectly reflects a core rule of law. Fourth is democratic. India established a representative democracy with universal adult franchise, which means every single adult gets a vote, along with free, fair, and periodic elections. But the philosophical ideal here goes way deeper than just casting a ballot. The founders deeply recognized that a true democracy can't just be political, it must also ensure genuine social and economic democracy for all its people. Finally, we have republic. This is a massive contrast to systems like the British monarchy. In a republic, there is no hereditary ruler. There's no privileged ruling class. The head of state, which in India's case is the president, is elected for a fixed term. And the beautiful part? Any citizen of India, regardless of who they are, can contest for that highest office without any discrimination. Let's move to and see how this builds in Section 4, the 4 pillars of promise. Okay, so we know the nature of the state now, but what does it actually promise to provide for its citizens? The preamble outlines 4 load-bearing pillars that hold up the entire architectural structure of the nation. It's like a giant building. If any one of these pillars crumbles, the whole system is at risk. These pillars are justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. Let's look closely at how the Constitution defines each one. First up is justice, which the Constitution seeks to secure in the 3 distinct but totally interconnected dimensions. Social justice means abolishing social evils, things like untouchability and the dowry system, so individuals can actually develop in a healthy environment. Economic justice means fulfilling basic human requirements like food and shelter and ensuring equal pay for equal work. And political justice means the right to participate in political affairs without any distinction of caste, religion, or sex. You can start to see the narrative here. One form of justice simply cannot survive without the others. I mean, you can't have true political justice if your citizens are struggling with extreme economic poverty, right? And this brilliant quote really illustrates the deep emotional core behind all these legal concepts. Jawaharlal Nehru once said, "The ambition of the greatest man of our generation has been to wipe every tear from every eye." That may be beyond us, but as long as there are tears and suffering, so long our work will not be over. It shows that the pursuit of economic and social justice wasn't just some dry legal requirement. It was born out of profound empathy for the millions who had suffered. The second pillar is liberty. Now, liberty can actually be viewed in 2 ways. There's negative liberty, which is basically freedom with absolutely 0 limitations. Do whatever you want. But the Indian Constitution embraces positive liberty. It absolutely guarantees the liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship. But, and this is key, it subjects these to reasonable restrictions. Why? So that your freedom isn't treated as a dangerous license to harm someone else, but rather acts as a protected space to create healthy conditions for everyone to develop. The third pillar is equality. So the crucial point is understanding what equality actually means in real-world practice. As Justice Patanjali Sastry pointed out, identical treatment does not automatically mean equality. Think about it. If you treat people who are starting from vastly unequal circumstances identically, you're really just perpetuating that inequality. Therefore, the Constitution implies equal treatment under equal circumstances. It specifically recognizes the need for protective discrimination to provide benefits to weaker, marginalized sections. It's about leveling the playing field so true equality of status and opportunity can actually be achieved. The fourth and final pillar is fraternity. Look, in a country as highly pluralistic and incredibly diverse as India, developing a spirit of common brotherhood is absolutely essential. The constitutional fathers knew citizens had to break down what they called narrow domestic walls of caste, religion, and region. Fraternity is that vital glue that assures the dignity of the individual while simultaneously paving the way for the unity and integrity of the entire nation. Section 5, a grand and noble vision. All right, we've analyzed the blueprint, but now we must zoom out and look at how this grand vision operates in the real world. In the landmark Keshavananda Bharti case, Chief Justice Sikri stated that the preamble is of extreme importance and that the entire Constitution should be read and interpreted in the light of the grand and noble vision it expresses. It's not just a nice introduction you skip over. It is literally the ultimate guiding star, the lens through which the entire legal and political framework of the country must be viewed. However, our source material does leave us with a critical, rather sobering estimate. When we objectively study the efforts of successive governments in actually realizing these massive constitutional goals, a harsh reality emerges. The source neutrally notes that regarding the actual provision of social and economic justice, actually ending poverty and inequality, little is done and most is undone. It points out a generally poor track record of governments in providing these basic dimensions of justice, noting that even political justice hasn't quite been achieved in its true purist spirit. Which leaves us with this final, incredibly important thought to ponder. We have this beautiful, exceptionally thoughtful architectural blueprint. But a blueprint is just the promise of a building, isn't it? If so much of this social and economic justice still remains undone today, is a constitution merely a static historical document kept under glass? Or is it an ongoing, daily practice, a living ideal that citizens and leaders must continuously strive and fight for to actually make real? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. I really hope this helped you see the foundational ideals of the state in a whole new light. Keep questioning and keep learning.